And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, we are going to be acknowledging a loophole. Well, not really acknowledging, more like analyzing a loophole that the New York Knicks use in order to make this trade between the Timberwolves and the Hornets and the Knicks possible to acquire Karl-Anthony Towns. It's a very, very, very interesting loophole that they use in the new CBA rules. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article, and that sort of explains exactly how they use this loophole. So, again, to strengthen the roster in the upcoming season, the Knicks made a bold move in acquiring Karl-Anthony Towns from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, to land Towns, the Knicks had to give up key players like Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. However, the trade has sparked even more attention due to an interesting revelation about how the Knicks pulled off the deal, according to a report from Fred Katz of The Athletic. The Knicks found a very clever loophole in the NBA's collective bargaining agreement, CBA rules, and this involves, avoiding first apron / second apron and actually being able, you can't really do certain trades if you're in a certain apron, and you can't give certain players certain contracts with the new CBA rules. This is sort of to limit super teams as well as to limit teams, getting ridiculously stacked rosters, even though the Celtics are just like, forget it, we're made out of cash. But aside from that, the Knicks roster is sort of maneuvering faces and NBA scrutiny after Karl-Anthony Towns' trade. So the Knicks' clever use of the CBA rules allowed them to execute Karl-Anthony Towns' trade while keeping their roster rather flexible. So as part of a creative strategy, the Knicks needed to sign Daquan Jeffries, Charlie Brown Jr., and DeJuan Washington Jr. to contracts that exceed the minimum salary by $1. Because in one of the CBA rules, you aren't allowed, if you're doing a trade, depending on how it works, again, it's rather complicated, but you aren't allowed to do certain things. So in a certain trade, you aren't really allowed to sign certain players on a veteran minimum and retain the roster that you have. So in order to avoid that, the Knicks technically didn't sign them on a veteran minimum because they signed them for $1 more than the veteran minimum, which is a very, very, very clever strategy. Now, not everyone really supports the Knicks' approach into doing this, as Fred Katz revealed in social media posts that the NBA is not too happy about the team exploiting this loophole. And Katz wrote, "I have heard from various people that the league isn't thrilled about this, but such is the way it goes with new CBAs. The NBA tries to close up loopholes, and then smart people working for teams find new ones." Like, that's one of... I always, my parents always used to say that one of the things that makes America run is finding loopholes. And it's a very, very popular thing that a lot of people try to do. And while the NBA may not be pleased with the Knicks' resourcefulness that has allowed them to add Towns to their roster without really jeopardizing their cap situation, the deal now puts them in a strong position for the upcoming season to encounter strong opponents, just like the Boston Celtics. So this is just a very, very big brain move from the front office of the New York Knicks. This is huge because, again, if they were to sign them to the veteran minimum, then they wouldn't be able to get this trade to go through. So instead of that, they just decided, all right, we'll just pay them $1 more than the veteran minimum. And boom, there you go. They still are essentially paying them the veteran minimum, but not really paying them the veteran minimum. It's a very, very clever loophole that they're using. And again, the NBA isn't happy about this, but such is life. This is what happens when you have an actual competent front office. They can make something happen. And it's honestly like, I was shocked at the fact that this was what the Knicks had to do in order to get this move to work. It was a very, very, very well played move. And obviously, this could end up backfiring them, as I mentioned before. Like, I'm not entirely sold on the Knicks and the acquiring of Karl-Anthony Towns, and I'm not entirely sure how that's going to fare in the postseason. However, this could really mess up with This could mess up the Minnesota Timberwolves, who just made it to the Western Conference Finals with Karl-Anthony Towns. So, again, Very clever loophole. I just wanted to go ahead and reveal exactly how they were able to get this trade through based off of the new details that we recovered. But aside from that, that is all that I have for this segment. That's all that I have for the show. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take or a burning question, something you've just been dying to share. We are all ears. If you really want your comment or question to get noticed, I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box, and then you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Super Chat's not really your thing. That's fine. You can always use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, and then you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Either or really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That is all that I have today on this show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.